insurance. Do it face to face.
Buy to let, thatched, commercial. We're your high street insurance brokers for all types of insurance. Avoid faceless internet firms.
High House Insurance, do it face to face.
See Neil and the friendly team at High Street Selsey.
High House Insurance, do it face to face.
Or call Selsey 606 552.
Hello, Mary Kennedy here, welcoming you to this week's programme. Let me tell you what's on. You may have enjoyed singing carols at the Seal before Christmas. The Reverend James Wesson is going to talk about that. Then Lyn's Larder, where Lyn is making an omelette. Thea Foot reads the second part of her story about the dragon. And a new item this week, Critics' Corner, where we will have a book or film review. This week David Kennedy reviews the film The Railway Man, and that will be followed by music from The Essentials. After that there will be a travel review by Hugh Graham, who recently visited Dubrovnik. We have a short story, The Last Dance, written and read by Pat Reed, followed by this week's tips from the Selsey Shopper. Our thought for the day this week comes from Alistair Hornell, the interim pastor at East Beach Evangelical Church. Before we start, over to Beryl Fletcher for our What's On spot.
Hello, Beryl Fletcher here, reporting what's on around Selsey. If you have an interest in photography, the Selsey Camera Club are holding their next meeting on Monday, the 20th of January, held in St Wilfrid's Church Hall, based in Church Road. Meetings commence at 7:30 p.m. For further details, please contact on 603 616 between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. For those senior citizens, the Darby and Joan Club hold regular meetings on Friday afternoons between 2 and 4 p.m. in St Peter's Church Hall, where a good time is enjoyed by all with a fun bingo session plus a nice cup of tea. If you are a member of the Venture Club, you could always arrange to be picked up. Please ring Jill Evenden on 604 187 for any further information that you may need. A reminder for the Burns Night quiz, being held at the Selsey Centre on Saturday the 25th of January. Doors open at 7 p.m. The quiz commences at 7:30 p.m. Cost is £2.50 per person, with a maximum of 6 players per table. Tickets can be obtained at the door or contact Bernice on 696 225 for tickets in advance. The spring season for the Cinema Club is scheduled to commence with a film entitled Rush on Monday the 27th of January at 7:30 p.m. Tickets cost £5. These tickets are on sale in the town hall, or you can pay at the door. Season tickets are also now on sale, with the opportunity to acquire a bargain when you pay £28 for 7 films, hence making a saving of £7. Tai Chi classes have now restarted on Mondays, held in the Selsey Centre from 4:30 p.m. until 5:30 p.m. A 9-week course costs £45. Students of all ages and physical abilities are usually able to participate. If you need any more information, contact Tracy Gibbons on 01243 514 909 or lifeandbalance.org.uk. And last but not least, baby ballet classes for tots of 18 months to 3 years have commenced again, held in the Selsey Centre on Mondays at 10:30 a.m, offering fun and exciting classes in a safe and caring environment. The cost is £15 for a trial of 3 lessons. For further information and to book your place, please contact Karen Russell on 0798 3 00943. Well, that's all for this week. Thank you.
So now over to James Wesson.
James, tell us about the Seal Carol service, or whatever you call it.
Well, the Seal call it the karaoke. But in fact, for 2 years now, we've been down to the Seal with the choir and with the organist and just had a constant evening of carol singing.
Yeah.
Aided by beer and various fare from across the bar.
Yeah.
And they've been very popular. We've had very, very full pubs on both occasions. We started it last year in 2012 and did a second one this year, and we hope it's going to become a tradition.
Well, Kiki says it's going to be a tradition.
Well, if Kiki says it's going to be a tradition, it will be.
Okay. So, well, tell us about it. When did it start? How long does it go on for? Does everybody enjoy it enthusiastically? What sort of a music do you take down there with you?
Well, we start at the Seal at 3 and go on really for as long as people have got the energy. This year we had to finish slightly early because we have the organist, Fran Jones, with us.
Yeah.
And she needed to be elsewhere at about 4:30. So we went on for about an hour and a half, sung many, many of the traditional carols, and Fran played on the electric organ, which gives off a very good sound. And I think I chose 19 to begin with. Everybody is given service sheets along with the usual mince pies and mulled wine and anything else they buy from over the bar. And they sing very loudly and very tunefully on the whole. And all sorts of people come, not just from the church, but the regulars at the Seal, and people come who are not regulars at either church or the Seal, to get a little flavour of Christmas.
Okay. And do you have sort of refreshment breaks?
Not
in between
really.
the singing?
No, we just go one for the other. Probably sometimes the odd 5-minute break, so people can get back to the business at the bar. But it worked. It's gone down very well, and people really enjoy singing. And of course, for a lot of people, it's their only real connection with the church at Christmas.
Right.
Because many of them won't come to church on Christmas Day. They won't come to the Advent services, but they do want the music in the pub, and they thoroughly enjoy it.
I recognise people from all the churches there.
They were.
You know, I recognise Catholics, I recognise people from East Beach Church, and I recognise Methodists. In fact, Bruce was there, wasn't he?
He was. There were, all the churches are represented there, and that many come from all the various churches, but also just regular users of the Seal who don't go to church at all.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, and that's why I had the idea this year of also doing a service at the Ocean View Bar at Bunn Leisure on the West Beach.
Oh, how did that go?
Well, that went really well. It started off very quietly. We had a choir of about 8, plus Fran on the organ, and about 6 people in the bar. So there was a slight nervousness about how successful it would be, but after about 40 minutes, I reckon we had 70 or 80 people there.
Really?
And they were just coming downstairs, or they were coming off the promenade at the front, or whatever you like to call it. They heard some cheery Christmas music, and in they came. So, yeah, and that went on a long time as well. And that was much more, there were lots of requests on that one, particularly from the children. There were quite a few children there, one or two who we had
So the children were leading the adults, were they?
The children were as involved as leading, as many of the adults were, yes. It worked very well. So we'll do that again next year as well, because I hope that Bunn Leisure will be open over Christmas and the New Year again. I think this is the first year they've done it.
I think they've extended the months that they can open now.
Yeah.
And I think they intend to be open for Christmas and the New Year.
And again, it was nice because, as quite a lot of the staff said, and the customers there as well, although they were there for Christmas and the New Year, it was the only real sign of Christmas and Christmas music during their week or so down there. It was, I suppose, the nearest they got to a church service.
And did they seem to enjoy it?
Oh, thoroughly enjoyed it, yes. They were very reluctant to let us go.
Really?
Yeah.
That was good then?
Yeah, that was very good. So very pleased.
Will you do the same thing again next year?
Yep. All
So
will be done.
what about taking it to all the pubs in Selsey then?
Well, why not? Yes. It's not a bad idea. We do some of the care homes, so we'll, if all the pubs would like it, we can easily do it.
I'm sure the pubs would love it. And that means you could also go down the Bridge of Legion too, couldn't you?
Indeed, yes. Yes, that would be a good place to start.
You'd have to make quite sure the choir stayed sober, wouldn't you? Maybe you'd have to do this one evening at a time.
Yes, you couldn't do it all. You couldn't do the lot in one day.
Yeah.
But no, I mean it was a risk certainly to go to Bunn, but I think it worked very well. I was very pleased with it.
So this is taking Christ into the pubs, or taking the church to everybody else?
Well, taking the church out into the community.
Yeah.
And I do think that Bunn Leisure, particularly now it's open nearly all year round, and particularly since so many people who own caravans there consider this home more than they do home, we are taking the church into a hitherto unexplored area. And
which is very exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting. We've done baptisms from there, and I've done a few weddings from there. So
really?
So yes, the presence is really important.
Okay.
The presence of the church and the presence of Christ in all these places, really important, and it's gone very well.
Well, thank you very much, Jane.
It's a pleasure.
And we'll talk about it again.
Yeah.
Early in December next year.
Yes.
When will it be held next year?
It's
the one at the Seal.
The Seal is the Saturday before Christmas.
Yeah.
The Oasis is the day before.
Okay.
So we'll have to devise a programme if we do any other places as well.
Oh, we'll talk about this nearer the time.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot, Jane.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.
Now Lyn has tips for making the perfect omelette.
Well, Lyn, we got you back in the recording studio again, and it's the start of 2014.
Yeah, good morning, Hugh.
I wonder whether we could talk about simple meals for simple people like me, people who live alone.
ABC meals.
Yeah.
ABC. People that live on their own, yeah, let's do that this next few weeks, shall we?
Yeah.
Just some very simple, tasty things that people can put together. Today we'll do an omelette, for instance. Not everybody knows how to do a good omelette, do they? This is quite a surefire, simple way. I've been doing it like this for 30 odd years, and it's really, really quick and easy. When you get home from work, you can just beat up a couple of eggs, can't you? But you can just have omelettes for breakfast or lunch or dinner or whenever, really, can't you?
Yeah.
They're not just a one meal thing, so you can have them anytime you want.
And you can put all sorts of fillings in too, can't you?
Yeah, lots of tasty fillings. Anything you've got left over in the fridge, grate it up, stick it in there. A nice Spanish omelette with all the peppers and everything, wonderful. And you can spice it up as much as you like as well. You know, a bit of paprika here, a bit of something else there. Just dash it all in. So starting with your simple omelette, you're going to need 3 eggs. I always do a 3-egg omelette because I like my omelettes big and fluffy.
Yeah.
All right.
What about the eggs?
Free range.
Free range.
Free range. I always say free range. Now listen, people, you do not have to buy free range eggs, but I do. All right. I'm a bit of a stickler.
Do you think they taste better?
I do. Well, I think for me it's more the thought of the chicken than the taste of the egg.
Okay.
All right.
I also think that I go looking for corn-fed.
Oh, do you?
Free range eggs.
Now, do you find they taste better?
Oh yes.
Ah.
Without that. Now that's maybe imagination, but
Yeah, could be.
I'm rather like you. I'm happy about the chickens because they've had a decent life.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think it's the thought of the chicken.
And the eggs seem to look nicer anyway.
They're yellow. They've certainly got a better yolk on them anyway. Yeah. So we're going to have 3 nice sized eggs. All right. Put them in your little bowl or your little jug or whatever it is you're using, and beat them to a pulp. Beat them all up. That's a good way of taking out some aggression. Good tension reliever. A little bit of sea salt.
Yeah.
All right. Tiny pinch of sea salt. A little bit of freshly ground black pepper out of your little mill.
Yeah.
A small nub of butter.
Yeah.
And 1 small handful of cheddar cheese I've got here. But we're going to talk about the fillings after we've done the omelette, all right?
Okay.
So let's make your omelette. Crack the eggs into your mixing bowl with a pinch of salt and pepper. Beat well with a fork. So really give it a good go, like I said. You've got your small frying pan, and you only want a little frying pan for an omelette. You don't need to put it in one of these great big 6-egg pans. It's not going to work. So nice little, get yourself a little omelette pan.
That's about 9 inches then.
Yeah, well, but maybe even smaller than that if you can.
Yeah.
And stick it on the pan, and a really good non-stick one is good. And let it get hot over a low heat. All right. Add a small nub of butter in the pan, and when the butter's melted, pour in your eggs and move them around the pan. Now, as you're moving them around the pan, You don't want it all to stick to the bottom at once, so you're going to beat the middle bit a little bit. You're just going to fluff it up with your fork and let that middle bit keep cooking in, as I call it, cook it in. So do the middle bit like that. When the omelette begins to cook and firm up and it just sort of goes gooey on the top, but still has a little raw egg on it, that would be the time for me, if you were going to do a cheese omelette, to put your cheese on. In this instance, we're not going to do that, so we're just going to let it keep going and use the spatula, go round the omelette so that it doesn't stick.
To lift the edge.
To lift the edge up, all right, so that it's not sticking. And then you can fold it over in half, and when it starts to turn golden brown underneath, remove it from the heat and slide it onto a plate. Right. It's as simple as that. Now then, somebody once said to me, a chef once said to me, there's a really good way of making an omelette rise to the top by putting all these things in. And he said, as it gets to that stage where it's gone that little gooey bit on the top, he said, chuck it under a grill.
Yeah.
And the omelette will rise up like anything, he said, and it'll go lovely and fluffy, and you can get it on the plate. And if you can get it to the customer before it starts to go flat again, he said, you're in with a bag.
Have you tried this?
I've tried it once or twice.
Did it work?
When I'm cheating. Oh yes, of course it works.
Now I tried this.
Yeah.
And it worked like a dream. What I did, which would probably have you in hysterics now, I put grated Parmesan cheese on top of it. Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
And as we said just now, you can put anything you like in an omelette.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, if you're going to put things like mushrooms, peppers, anything you've got left in the fridge, the omelette making is slightly different. And then what I do anyway is I like to cook those things off in the pan before we add your eggs.
I agree.
All right, so you put your onion or your mushrooms, especially, they make a lovely omelette. Stick them in the pan, let them cook off, and then add your egg, all right? And then everything else is exactly the same. Keep stirring it round. Make sure that it gets nice and cooked in the middle, but just so that it's icky, a little bit icky on the top. Chuck it under the grill, if you like. Add some nice cheese. Oh, beautiful. Bit of paprika, as you said. Yeah. Wonderful. Lovely omelettes. And you can do them any time. They take 10 minutes, don't they?
Yeah.
10 minutes for a really good hearty meal. And you can ring the changes with your health kick, if you like. That's something healthy in the middle.
Now, hang on.
Vegetables.
Something for next week or the week after.
Yeah.
When I have an omelette, I often have an omelette at lunchtime.
Yeah.
I think it goes well with chips.
Oh, it does.
Now, most people don't know how to make chips, do they?
Yeah.
So can we next week or the week after talk about making chips?
Okay, good home-cooked chips.
Because I think you're going to start off with Maris Piper potatoes.
Okay, you like your Maris Piper? Well, next week then we'll talk about home-cooked chips. I like whites, I must say, but that's good. I think that when it comes to that, it's your own personal preference and something you're going to find out as you go along and just keep going with it. But yeah, right, next week we've got chips and roast potatoes then, shall we?
Yeah, fine. Brilliant. Lovely. Thanks a lot, Lyn.
You're welcome.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Did you enjoy part 1 of Thea's dragon story? Here she is to read part 2.
The little dragon begins to grow up. Now you all remember the story I told you of the little dragon and how he came to be born and cared for by Mother Earth? Well, I am now going to tell you how the little dragon almost became the bigger dragon. One morning in early summer, when all was well with the world, the little dragon went to the lake to have a drink of water. He was very thirsty because all night he and his brothers had been practicing their "I'm bigger and braver than you" skills. Once again, the little dragon had come last in the battle, as he was the littlest dragon. "I'm fed up with always being the little dragon," he said to himself. "I'm going to the lake and I shall drink a gallon of water and that will make me larger." So off he went. I expect you know that teenage boys are very cocky little creatures. They always think they know better than their elders. Well, the little dragon was no different, except he had no elders to tell him what was what. So the fact that he believed the water in the lake would help him grow bigger seemed a very sensible idea to the little dragon. When he got to the lake, he found that there were several large pink birds strutting about in the water. They had long, pink, spindly legs, round, pink, feathered bodies, and long, bendy, pink necks. At the top of their bendy pink necks was an elegant and beautiful head, large eyes and a curved beak. The little dragon looked at these strange birds, and for only the second time in his life he spoke out loud. You may remember the first and only time so far that he spoke out loud was to Mother Earth. This time, however, he simply said one word, and this word was his way of expressing shock, horror, and a question. "Flamingo!" was the word he used to express all these thoughts. Now, because he was standing on the edge of the vast lake, and the air all around was clear and clean and bright, the sound travelled across the water. It spread as a stone dropped into water spreads. It was picked up by the air, passed to the breeze, who carried it high above the water to the hills, and then to the mountains beyond. They in turn caught it and called to the air to carry it back to the lake and the beautiful pink birds. All this happened because no one could understand the meaning of the word. The leader of the pink birds was a very wise creature, more so because this year they had decided that a female would be their queen, and upon her wings would rest the weight of responsibility. She would be responsible for their continued peace and the undisturbed life they led on the lake. When this beautiful and wise bird heard the air moving swiftly back again, carrying the magic of sound as if it too had wings, her lovely head stretched up. She tried to catch the word as it came flying past on the back of the air. She stood on one leg, neck stretched taut, she opened her beak. With one swift moment she caught it. Flamingo! The sound came back from deep in her body up into her throat and was carried once more on the gentle arms of the air as it circled the lake, turning the sound around and around. Then, as if by magic, every pink bird on the lake opened their beaks and the air rushed in. It sounded as if they uttered the sound as one being. The whole lake, water, air, and earth beneath rang with the sound of Flamingo! The little dragon could neither move from the spot on which he was resting, nor could he speak, even if he had wanted to, which of course he didn't. But he could smile, and that he did. He was so very delighted that he had been the one to name these gracious and gentle creatures. After drinking his fill of the waters by the lake, he lay down in a cave near his Mother Earth, and he fell asleep. When he awoke, about 3 months later, dragons have a very different day and night to us humans, you know. He yawned, he did his daily stretches, and then he thought he would have another drink of water before heading back to Dragon Town. As he made his way to the lakeside, all the flamingos lifted their heads, and a unison of bird talk greeted him. They bowed their heads. They began to move, and as they moved, their wings lifted the soft air, which in turn created a slight breeze. This, to the little, but now nearly big dragon, sounded like music might sound had it existed all that time ago. This was, of course, had the little, now nearly big dragon realized, the air singing, and how music came into being. As he watched the flamingos dancing to the singing of the air being created by the sound of their wings, he felt himself growing bigger. He had, after all, been asleep all of 3 months, and he thought that now was the time to try out his flame-throwing skills. which of course was what he was endeavouring to do when he uttered the word flamingo. But his fiery skills will have to wait until next time, when we will find out how the little dragon becomes the big dragon.
David Kennedy is going to review The Railway Man. Then there will be some music from The Essentials.
Hello, this is David Kennedy and welcome to Critics Corner. This week we're looking at the film The Railway Man, starring Colin Firth and Nicole Kidman. I was lucky enough to see a preview of this film some weeks ago before it came out on general release, and I'd like to cover some of the aspects of the film with you today. If you're going to a film thinking Colin Firth or hunky man or frothy rom-com, this isn't the film for you. The film is based on a book by Eric Lomax, concerns mainly his life having been captured by the Japanese at the fall of Singapore and the torture and trials that he underwent in Burma, working on the notorious death railway between Burma and Siam. The film also covers scenes of torture, deprivation and ill treatment by the Japanese. It also covers the effects that these activities had on the people who were involved, not only the English but also the Japanese themselves, and the effects that it had on their family, people's family and friends, not only during the war but after the war, for many decades after the war. Eric finally became reconciled with his Japanese tormentor and they became firm friends. Although, as he says in the film and in his book, I can forgive, I can guarantee 100% forgiveness, but I can never forget. It must be very difficult to live through things like that, untainted by the effects of what was happening. But the film itself is very good, despite scenes of graphic torture, both those that you can see and those that were implied by what's going on in the film. If you want a nice happy film, this isn't the one for you. If you want a film that shows that it is possible to overcome and forgive, then it's a very good film worth going to see.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did their grace appear the hour I first believed.
over to Hugh Graham, who will transport us to Dubrovnik.
We all enjoy long, lazy weekends, sometimes with friends, sometimes by popping over to Paris, occasionally as far as Berlin or Brussels. But what I'm going to suggest is something a little more adventurous. Take the 2 hours and 40 minutes flight from Gatwick to Dubrovnik, pearl of the Adriatic, top end of the Mediterranean, almost opposite Venice. It's a superb location, and it will provide you with a magnificent long weekend. Dubrovnik is a magnificent walled city located in the extreme south of Croatia, in what was formerly Yugoslavia. Millions have visited Dubrovnik because it's the port of call on Mediterranean cruises, and the city has become the world's 10th most visited port for cruise ships. Last year, 700 ships brought more than 1 million tourists. Overcrowding at the height of the tourist season, July and August, can be a problem. So the city has been forced to make an agreement with the liner operators to prevent overcrowding. Now, not more than 7,000 passengers are allowed to disembark and visit the city in any one day. There's a lot to do. You could walk 2 kilometres around the city walls. You could enjoy the architectural beauty of the palazzos within the city. You could stroll through narrow alleyways and explore the dozens of small shops offering everything the tourist could want. Or you could enjoy superb Dalmatian cuisine, or just a single glass of local wine or one of the fine beers at one of the open-air cafes. When Marjorie and I were there in October, we took the cable car to the restaurant atop the escarpment overlooking the city, and afterwards we visited the museum, which commemorates the siege of 1991 and 1992, when the city was bombarded by the Yugoslavian People's Army. We took a one-day boat trip to the Elefiti Islands. The boat ride was superb. We explored some of the islands, which have a beautiful countryside. We swam and we walked and we just rested and relaxed. Oh, and the skipper of each vessel provides a tasty lunch. For most people, the best months to visit are May and October. Think sunny days with the sea warm enough to swim, and hotels, restaurants and tourist attractions open, but without the crowds. Great deals can be done. Inclusive trips at both ends of the season are available for about £200 to include travel and hotel. That's for just 3 days, of course. Return flights, about 2.5 hours, can be as low as £40 at that time of the year, and they're simple to arrange. And furthermore, it's easy to arrange accommodation when you get there, so at each end of the season there's no need to book an hotel. I'd advise you to avoid the peak season, July and August, when Dubrovnik is overrun by tourists. It's then that hotel prices rocket and restaurants and beaches are packed. But on the plus side, you can enjoy the Dubrovnik Summer Festival and the glitzy nightlife. Not for Marjorie, we'd rather go out of season. Dubrovnik's old town is pedestrian only, and if you're going to get around much of the city and the surrounding suburbs, we suggest you take one of the many city buses which run extremely frequently. Tickets, which last for a full hour and will allow you to travel anywhere, cost about 15 kuna, which is £1.60, if they're bought from the driver. But you can get them slightly cheaper by buying them from one of the many newspaper kiosks. However, the best deal is a 24-hour day pass, which costs 30 kuna, about £3.20, and allows you to go anywhere you like. I wouldn't bother with hiring a car because parking near the city walls is extremely expensive and very difficult. And even if you're travelling out of the city, I'd still go by bus or by ferry. Finally, don't mention the war. It's still a very thorny issue, as many families have mixed marriages between Serbs and Croatians. And not only that, some of the Muslims have married Christians, and of course Christians have married Muslims. So it's best to forget the war and talk about something else.
And a short story from Pat Reed.
Hi, I'm Pat Reed for Selsey Internet Radio, and I'd like now to read you a short story written by Keith Dodman, who is a member of the Selsey Writers' Circle, now known as the Selsey Scribblers. The Last Dance. Kate Webster was ironing whilst listening to the radio when she thought she heard music coming from the garage. Strange, she thought, and called up to her teenage daughter. "Rachel, get down here and go into the garage. I'm sure I can hear music." Rachel eventually appeared at the kitchen door. "It's Grandpa. He's dancing." "What on earth do you mean he's dancing?" asked a puzzled Kate as she pictured her father gyrating about on his toes and leaping into the air. "Well, Mum, I wouldn't call it dancing as such. More like jigging and shuffling around." "Oh, that's all right then. I suppose it's harmless enough. But, Rachel, I'm going to rely on you to keep an eye on him, to make sure he doesn't overdo it. I'm very fond of him, but he's an old man and you have to expect some odd behaviour at times." Rachel frowned and returned to her iPod, whilst trying to work out how she was supposed to keep an eye on her energetic grandfather. So she occasionally looked in on his sessions in the garage and reported back to her mother. "Mum, Grandpa has a big stack of CDs and he's bought a new CD player and also a DVD recorder and player for the TV in his room." "I knew this would happen. Oh well, I suppose as long as he's happy and using his own money, we shouldn't worry. I just hope there's some left when he goes." "Oh, Mum, I don't want him to go, and I like to see him enjoying himself." "You're a sweet girl, Rachel, but he'll soon get bored and give it up." Kate's prediction, however, did not prove correct, and after more practice sessions and watching more strictly on the TV, events moved on. One day, a van appeared to deliver a very large mirror which was carried into the garage, and soon after that a man arrived with a drill and proceeded to fix the mirror to the far garage wall. Fortunately, Kate and her daughter had gone shopping and were only made aware of all this activity when Kate's husband, David, burst in. "What the heck's going on? I thought I'd driven into the wrong garage. Some idiot has fixed a large mirror to the wall and the reflection almost blinded me." "Calm down, dear, and have a drink. It's only Dad and his new hobby. He's been watching too much Strictly on the telly. He'll soon get tired of it." Kate was usually right, but once again her prediction fell wide of the mark as, 2 weeks later, she answered the front door to be confronted by a taxi driver. She was just about to tell him he had the wrong address when she heard a movement on the stairs, turned and saw a figure dressed in black coming down and carrying a large holdall. Falling back against the wall in stunned surprise, she managed just about to stifle a scream before realising it was her father in a tracksuit and a black wig. The bemused driver asked politely, "Taxi for Mr. King? Is everything all right?" Kate, having quickly recovered her ruffled composure, asked, "Where on earth do you think you're going dressed like that and in that ridiculous wig?" "I'm going dancing and I want to look younger." Kate's imagination was working overtime. Her instincts told her that the situation had become critical and required desperate action. Grabbing her coat, hat and bag from the hall stand, she announced, "I'm coming with you. You're not going out alone dressed like that." Her father didn't argue, but asked the driver to take them to the community centre, where he paid the fare whilst Kate translated the cost of this into tonight's meal. They entered a very noisy hall with a few dozen people, mainly women, some of which were dressed in figure-hugging dresses which enhanced their curves, much to the dismay of Kate. A pretty blonde woman rushed up to them. "Oh, Mr. King, I'm so glad you decided to come. We spoke on the phone. I'm Rita and your leader today." "Oh, is this your sister? Would she like to join too?" Before Kate could reply, her father was hurried off into a cluster of chattering ladies. Deciding it would be just too embarrassing to watch, as the very loud and lively music filled the air, Kate left her father to it, saying in a loud voice as she passed him, "Don't worry about me, I can find my own way home." She noted a few titters as she walked past the ranks of women, but managed to give Rita a look which implied disgust. Her father returned home later to a cold salad and a very sarcastic daughter. "Best I could do, I'm afraid, considering the time it took to get back with the changing of buses. Did Rita take care of you?" "Your sister, indeed. And would I like to join?" "You could do worse, Kate. It would take some weight off you. I enjoyed it anyway, and the ladies were very friendly. Anyway, I've joined and paid my annual subscription." Kate almost screamed. It was all too much. The cost of it all, and those ghastly women crowding around him. How long before he found a special friend and deserted them? She needed to talk to Rachel, who was making her customary dash to her bedroom before she was intercepted and pulled back into the kitchen. "Look, Rachel, your grandfather has got women chasing him, and I want you to go with him to his classes so you can fend them off." "I'm not doing that, Ma, and anyway, I've got school. Why can't you go?" Kate reflected on the situation and, weighing up the pros and cons, came to the conclusion that she would have to swallow her pride and accompany her father in order to protect his interests, not to mention her inheritance. Rachel was persuaded to help with her mother's choice of clothes, and Kate sallied forth to the next dance session dressed in a flowing skirt and baggy jumper. Rita was surprised to see her and led her to the back of the class, while her father was lost to view at the front. As the music swelled and the women around her swayed and swung to the rhythm, Kate felt a happy emotion run through her and a compulsion to join them. She soon dropped her doubts and inhibitions and vigorously followed the others. Rachel found the house empty when she returned from school and was busy preparing her own tea when she heard a noise outside. Looking out of the front window, she was shocked to see her grandfather getting out of an ambulance and ran outside to see him. "Grandpa, what's happened? Where's Mum?" No, there's no need to worry, dear. Your mother's lying down on a stretcher as she can't stand up on her own. We have to somehow get her in and up to bed." "I knew dancing was a bad idea for Mum. What happened?" "Well, it was when Rita suggested we do some free dancing and put on a Bruce Springsteen number. It really turned your mother on, and I'm afraid her back wasn't used to all that exertion. She fell down, but isn't in any danger. She just can't walk." The paramedics pulled the stretcher out of the ambulance and carried it upstairs, where Kate was laid prostrate on the bed and given a word of advice. "Your bed is too soft. You'll need a stiff board under the mattress." "How can I get a board with two useless men in the house? One of them is working all day and the other in the garage dancing." Rachel found her grandfather in the kitchen with a large glass of sherry. "Mum's asleep now, probably all the painkillers, but she needs a board putting under the mattress." "Oh, does she? Well, that's easy enough. Anything to help get her back on her feet again, because I feel this is all my fault. I should have helped your mother with some gentle exercises before she started dancing. but I'll stay at home with her now. When Mum's better, you can go dancing together again. He smiled and thought of the exhilarating moments, the music, the fun he'd had, and the perfumed ladies, and then reality set in. I don't think so, love. It's a lovely thought, but I don't think I can show my face again after your mother caused such a scene and ruined their session. That wasn't your fault, Grandpa. It's not fair that your fun should be ruined, so I'm going to help you look after poor Mum until she's better, and make absolutely sure that it was not your last dance.
The Selsey shopper has information now about what's good to buy in Selsey this week.
Right, this is the Selsey shopper brought to us from Pat Reed. And Pat, what have you found in the Selsey shops this week?
Hi. This week I've 4 establishments which I noticed on my walk round. Firstly, a lady and gents clothing shop and hairdressers combined, which isn't in the high street but to the north of Selsey. It's called EHS and can be found by taking the entrance to Bunn Leisure's Green Lawns Caravan Park, which is near to the Selsey Police Station on the Chichester Road. If you walk a little way up the drive, you'll find the Viking Lodge, which is Bunn Leisure's clubhouse, and the shop is just to the right. I mention this shop because until March the 1st, there's a 50% off everything. They're awaiting their summer stock, and while the camp is closed, now is the time to snap up a bargain. They're open every day except Thursdays and Sundays. Now, most people from time to time need to replace the battery in their watch. I found that the cost of this is usually £5 upwards. You don't have to travel to Chichester, as Raycrafts in the High Street will replace your watch battery for £3.75. Drop it in one day and it's back the following morning, and if for any reason the battery can't be replaced, there's no charge. I think most hairdressers nowadays give a discount to senior citizens. One which I called into recently is E2 Hair in East Street. They have Thursday as their discount day when a shampoo and set is only £10. There are discounts on cuts and perms too for senior citizens on this day. A shop which I noticed only opened in December is Jan's, which is at the front of Penny Lane in the High Street. I called in this week to have a look, and they have all sorts of things for children from birth to 10 years. At first glance everything looked new, but when I saw prices from 50p upwards, I realised that some of it is second-hand. They do everything from a small selection of toys and equipment for baby and clothes for babies and children up to 10 years. Space is limited, but they've packed in a lot. During the winter months it will only be open between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. and closed on Wednesdays. Well, that's all for now.
And before thought for the day, a few words about next week's programme. We'll have an interview with Jill Jennings, the Selsey Town Clerk. We welcome back Giles Peer with gardening tips and Lyn. Ellis Berg will review the Just So stories by Rudyard Kipling. There'll be a poem from Liz Dunlop, and Thea is going to interview Mike Nichols. And we have a story from the Selsey Scribblers. So thank you for listening, and finally over to Alistair Hornell.
Had you heard that they're thinking about taking away the need for oaths in court? I don't think this is just about secularism. For many years there's been no requirement to take a religious oath. But now, not only is there no fear of God for many people, we seem to live in a no-fear society. There's no fear of any authority. I wonder, in fact, if we've gone too far down the line of nonchalance. Couldn't care less. Whatever. But what we do and say often has serious consequences. For ourselves and for other people. We may feel we can get away with most things in everyday life. We may even fancy our chances in a court of law. But we'd better not fool ourselves, because we can't fool God. And whether or not we swear an oath, we'll all have to face his judgment. When he was called to account by a court in Athens many years ago, the Apostle Paul said this: "The times of ignorance God has overlooked, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent." In other words, to change the way we think and change the way we live. Because he has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. And he's given proof of this to everyone by raising him from the dead. We can laugh it off, of course. Many people did then. We can ignore it, and that's probably more likely. But what if it's true? How would we stand before perfect justice? Before a God who's seen it all? Before a God who has committed himself to final justice? That's worth some thought, whether or not we have to swear an oath.